Hey everybody, and welcome into Giants Chatter. This is episode 4. I'm probably going to stop keeping track of how many episodes we do. I didn't do any last week. Like I said before, the plan is to try to be as consistent as possible, but life happens. Sicknesses happen. So anyway, we're here, and there's actually a lot to talk about. Nothing huge, nothing super dramatic or shocking has happened in the Giants world, but the Giants have been active, especially as of late, and as well as there are some rumors about some players that could end up on the Giants that we're going to dive into. But first, just want to say welcome if you are watching or listening for the first time. We're just getting started. I just started posting on social media a little bit just to get the word out there that we're doing this podcast. The whole goal with this podcast is to create as best of a podcast as we can about the San Francisco Giants for fans, that you can feel free to be passionate about your fandom as a Giants fan. You can get angry, you can get emotional, you can get upset, you can be joyful. That's why we're here. That's what I want to do. And I was struggling to find a podcast that resonated with me as a fan and took into account the fan perspective. And so that's why we're doing this. And I'm not promising that we're going to be the best show ever, but we're just doing it for fun. And if you want to follow along the journey, amazing, do so. But anyway, I'm glad you're here. We're going to dive right in. The first thing we're going to do today's episode, is to just highlight a few of the bigger moves that have happened around the league, and I may miss some because they kind of have happened more frequently. For example, I don't have Jorge Polanco on my list here, and I don't have Josh Bell to the Twins, but we're just going to highlight a few because this is a Giants podcast. This is an MLB podcast. Maybe someday that will come, but just a few that were bigger names, as well as a name that I think the Giants, I'm really bummed they didn't go get. And so yeah, let's do it. First and foremost, Edwin Diaz to the Dodgers on a 3-year deal. I've gotten to the point as a Giants fan now who has to deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I've gotten to the point where if there's a good free agent that I think, oh, maybe the Giants would spend the money and go get, I'm just going to assume, to protect myself and my heart and my emotions, I'm just going to assume he's going to be a Dodger. That's just the way it is. If there's a big player coming from Japan, just assume he's going to be a Dodger. It'll be better for you when he becomes a Dodger. You'll think, well, I knew it. And if he doesn't become a Dodger and he becomes a Giant, it'll feel amazing. Whoa, we got a guy from that the Dodgers could have swiped, but we got him. So I'm not surprised that the Dodgers went out and got Edwin Diaz, the best closer available. I'm not surprised at all. They had a pretty glaring need in the back end of their bullpen, so much so that in the playoffs and in the World Series last year, they had to lean heavily on some of their starting pitchers to get them through without Yamamoto's performance, which, by the way, was not as good as Bumgarner's performance, but still was really good. Without his performance being a starter and then also coming out of the pen, they don't win that World Series. And so they had a need at the back end of the bullpen, and so I'm not surprised that they went out and they got the best player possible to fill that need. So that's going to be fun. The Giants are going to have to deal with him, but I'm not overly concerned about that. A closing pitcher is not... It is a late inning reliever is an important role for sure, but it's not an everyday position player that you're going to face 3 or 4 times in the lineup every time you play the Dodgers. This is a guy that you will face if you are losing late in the game by a few runs or less. If you're winning late in the game, you're not going to face this guy, and so this is someone that you might face a handful of times throughout the year, but he's not going to be this constant thorn in your side. So I'm not overly concerned about this, and I'm not surprised at all. Also, in other news, Kyle Schwarber is heading back to Philadelphia to be with the Phillies. Not surprised by this. Not surprised that they wanted a guy who hits 50-something home runs in their lineup. The rumors about the Giants, whoever did that, I can't remember if it was Buster Olney or Andrew Baggerly or whoever, but said the Giants are in on Schwarber. Again, that was a bunch of nonsense. They were never in on Kyle Schwarber. These beat reporters are so hungry, especially in certain points of the offseason when there's not a lot of news. They'll take one little quote from somebody like Buster Posey or Zach Manassian who says, yeah, we're kicking the tires, and they're in on Kyle Schwarber, and it's just a reporter trying to write an article because they have to for their job. So sometimes you got to take those reports and just say, there's no way. Look at the makeup of the team. We have Rafi Devers and Bryce Eldridge who classify as only first base and DH. I mean, Devers could play third, but he won't. We have Chapman as long as Chapman's healthy. We don't need a Kyle Schwarber. I mean, yeah, 50 home runs in your lineup would be great, but he's lefty. The ballpark doesn't match him. He's a guy who lives and dies by his power, so he's not going to want to come play at Oracle Park. So that whole report was ridiculous. I'm not surprised. He's back with the Phillies. Pete Alonso, in a surprising move, has moved now over to Baltimore. He's going to be playing for the Orioles. I don't really understand why the Mets didn't re-sign him. He is... if he would have finished his career in New York with the Mets, he could have been a all-time great Met who flirts with maybe 500 home runs, but probably hits at least 400 in his career. But he heads to Baltimore without even receiving an offer from the Mets. That's for another day. That's an interesting conversation. Kenley Jansen is heading to Detroit on a 1-year, $11 million deal, which is a deal for a guy who he's old. I think he's 38. But he is continually, every single year, still a solid back-end reliever who can close. The Giants, who need solid back-end relievers who can close, when I see a deal for someone like this with 1 year, $11 million, I'm thinking, is there a reason we didn't go get this guy? Is it just because he played for the Dodgers years ago? Is it because he's old? Because I would not mind to spend $11 million, which is not a ton. It's a 1-year deal. 1-year deals are never bad. You're not locked in after this year. He might be a good person to get, but he heads to the Tigers. And now, last one I want to bring up is the one that hurts the most. It is Tyler Rogers signing a deal with the Toronto Blue Jays, which for the Blue Jays, I think this is a great signing. They were, I think, 2 outs away from winning a World Series, and the home run ball was what got them. So no surprise, they go out and get a relief pitcher who doesn't give up the home run ball very often. Rogers, is as consistent as they come. He's got a funky delivery. He creates a lot of bad contact, and I was really hopeful the Giants would bring him back, and it just didn't happen, and I'm really surprised it didn't happen. I thought this just made sense. I thought, kind of what, like, I didn't add him to this list, but Merrill Kelly is heading back to the Diamondbacks. They traded him this year, and now they're bringing him right back, and so they basically said, hey, we're not going to make the playoffs this year. Here's Merrill Kelly. Give us some prospects, and we're just going to get him back next year. I thought that's what the Giants were going to do with Tyler Rogers, and it was going to be, in my opinion, a genius move by the Giants front office. But he goes to Toronto, and this one hurts because he is, in my opinion, you can slot him into the 7th or the 8th, and you can 90% of the time count on him getting through that inning unscathed, just because he's not going to strike a ton of people out, but just because he's going to give up weak contact. And the Giants have a solid enough infield to field that well. But we have to get over it. He's gone, and the Giants still have a glaring need at the back end of their bullpen. So that's going to be hopefully addressed, not with non-roster invites or random flyers on some guys, which we're going to get into in a minute. Which I forgot to add him into this list. I'm going to add him right now so I don't forget. But yeah, we'll see what the Giants do with the back end of their bullpen, but it's a bummer to see Rogers not coming back to San Francisco. Okay, let's transition now. Let's talk a little bit about the Giants' moves, and then we'll get into the rumor mill, and then we're going to conclude our episode today with another random player search, but this time it's going to be not so random because there's a Giants player from the 90s and early 2000s who has had something really big happen in their life recently, and we're just going to reminisce on his career for a little bit. But Giants move first and foremost with the coaching staff. They hired Ron Washington as an infield coach. I think this is fantastic. This is exactly the sort of moves the Giants need to make with Tony Vitello as their manager, someone who doesn't have any big league or minor league experience as a player or a coach, and is coming into this now. He's going to be learning the ropes of the big leagues, which are different than college baseball. And no matter how charismatic or good of a coach he is or manager he is, he's going to have to learn how to communicate to major league ball players, especially ones who are very talented and maybe have some ego. I don't know if there are guys on the Giants like that, but there could be. Maybe Devers is one of those guys who's making a ton of money. And so I think this is a smart move for the Giants to surround Tony Vitello with somebody who has so much big league experience, who can speak to someone like Devers on his level, or speak to Logan Webb on his level, or Matt Chapman on his level, who knows the game at the major league level. He's managed, he's coached at infield, he's coached the base positions, so he's got a full scope of how things operate. And so, one, he's going to relate well to the players, and two, he's just going to be a great voice, mentor type individual around Tony Vitello, which I really like what the Giants are doing. They're surrounding him with guys like this. Bruce Bochy isn't back in the organization as a special assistant, and he's going to be able to speak into Tony Vitello, from his managerial experience, Dusty Baker is involved in the organization, and he too will be able to speak to Vitello through his with his managerial experience. And then now Ron Washington. I think this is a great guy to surround Tony Vitello with, as well as he's an incredible infield coach. He's known for turning around infield defense. The left side of the infield with Chapman and Adames is pretty solid. Adames has room to grow. He has room to improve. Chapman's the best defensive third baseman in the league right now, in my opinion. And so I just think they're going to get better. And then the right side of the infield, depending on what happens, specifically the first base position with Devers, who's newer to first base, and with Eldridge, who is, still has room to grow at first base. I think this is going to be huge to have someone like Ron Washington. We've all seen Moneyball and Ron Washington, and that was coaching with the A's, and he was the one who was helping Scott Hatterberg learn how to play first base. Anyway, that's probably over-exaggerated in the movies. But and then whoever comes to the Giants with second base, if it's Casey Schmidt, if it's Tyler Fitzgerald, or if they go out and get somebody or trade for somebody, then having someone like Ron Washington to coach the infield up is a big deal. This is really good. I think this is a great move by the Giants. They also brought in Jesse Chavez to be their bullpen coach, which is another great move in my opinion. Another guy that can come alongside Tony Vitello and be that voice of a player. He's recently a player. He played all around the league. He can speak into some things and speak from the player's perspective to help Vitello in his first season. We'll get more in. We'll spend more time down the road when they announce their full coaching staff on all the coaches for the Giants. They have, I didn't include their pitching coach hire, but we'll get to all that. But we need to move into some of the player action that's happening. So last week at the winter meetings, the Giants did not draft someone from the Rule 5 draft, but they traded for a player who was drafted. So the Twins picked up Daniel Susac from the A's in the Rule 5 draft, which if you don't know, if a player is picked up during the Rule 5 draft, that means they have to be on the big league roster all year, or they get sent back to their previous team. So since the Twins picked him up, I believe what would happen, I think he'd go back to the A's actually, but maybe back to the Twins. If he doesn't make the Giants opening day roster or doesn't play the season with the Giants when they send him down, he can go back to, I believe, to the A's, but possibly Minnesota, depending on how that works, because the Twins drafted him and then traded him to the Giants. So he could go back to the A's organization. But anyway, they traded for Daniel Susac from the Twins, who was drafted in the Rule 5 draft, and he's been in the A's organization his entire minor league career. And if that name sounds familiar, he is the younger brother of Andrew Susac, who was a former San Francisco Giants player. And he is, let's look at his numbers a little bit. He is going to be in his age 20. He's 24. He'll be turning 25, I believe, before the season starts. So he's still young. He's a right-handed hitting catcher, which having a switch hitting catcher in Bailey gives you a lot of wiggle room when it comes to picking who your backup is. And I like this. Look, I know in a previous episode I was hoping the Giants would trade for Adley Rutschman. I think the Pete Alonso signing signals to everyone that the Orioles are all in. They're not going to be trading guys away, even though they've invested an extension into a different catcher besides Rutschman. I think they still view Rutschman highly and are hopeful that he'll bounce back and we'll be able to share time with the other catcher. I forget his name right now. And so my hopes of them trading for Rutschman are unlikely, and even more so now that the Giants have made this move. They need a good backup who can swing the stick a little bit, because Bailey, as we've talked about, as much as we love Patrick Bailey, and he's got the clutch tool, he can be clutch, and as much as we love his defensive metrics and his arm throwing ability, his framing ability, as good of a defensive catcher he is, we would be lying if we said he was a good hitter. He's not a good hitter. He's been very bad. His OPS has been around 650 every year of his career. That is not good. And so the Giants need a good backup who's formidable behind the dish, can play a good catcher, but who can swing the stick a little bit. And I think Susac is a great attempt to find that. It's somebody who's young, who maybe has a high potential career ahead of them, who recently in AAA, which we'll say this, that league that he played in, the Pacific Coast League, is a hitter's league, and the ballpark that he played in Vegas is kind of a boombox, and you can go yard quite a bit because his home run numbers jumped substantially this year. But what I want to look at more so is the slash lines. His OPS looks really good. So last year in AAA, in 97 games in the A's organization, he hit with a 275 average, a 349 on base, and a 483 slug, which comes out to an 832 on OPS. He hit 18 home runs and drove in 68 runs, 68 RBIs in 97 games, which came out to 360 at bats. And he hit also 19 doubles, which in 97 games is pretty solid. So anyway, this is a guy who last year most recently has shown that he can hit the ball. And then in years prior, in 2024, in Double-A, in 88 games, he hit 257. So his numbers were a little lower, which is to be expected, because that AAA league is kind of a hitter's league. He had a 300 on-base percentage, of 434 slug with a 734 OPS. The year prior, in 2023, he played 112 games between High A and Double-A, and he hit 300 batting average with a 365 on base and a 428 slug. His slug was down that year, only hit 8 home runs. And so you see the difference going from 8 home runs in 2023 to 2024 hitting, where's those numbers? Hitting 12 home runs to in 2025 18. So there's a progression. So maybe it's not the ballpark, maybe it's not the league, maybe he's developing into more of a power bat. But anyway, I like this move. It's kind of a why not for the Giants for me as I think about it. Like, okay, if Bailey's going to be our guy, if we're not going to go trade for Natalie Rushman, if we're not going to sign one of the catchers, why is he the guy from the Phillies? Is JT Realmuto? I don't know why my brain wasn't working. If we're not going to sign him and we're not going to really address the catcher position, which I'm okay with, I don't think you have to. I think you can get away with a Patrick Bailey not hitting very well as long as his defensive metrics continue to be out of this world. But I think it's important that your backup can swing the bat a little bit. And so Susac, he may be that guy, and he's young, so why not? Roll the dice. I like it. Also, the Giants, moving on now, have addressed the bullpen a little bit. They have signed Jason Foley and Gregory Santos. Now, Gregory Santos has been signed to a minor league deal. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he used to be in the Giants organization, and he was traded over to, I believe, Chicago. He was the White Sox, and then ended up in Seattle. Anyway, he pitched a little bit in 21 and 22 for the Giants, pitched in 5 games total within those 2 years, and didn't look very good. He got a full season in 2023, his age 23 season, pitched 60 games for the White Sox to a 3.39 ERA, so that's really good. But then the last 2 years in Seattle, he's been mostly in the minor leagues. He has 16 total major league appearances with the Mariners between the last 2 seasons, and an ERA that hovers around 5 in those years. So this is a minor league deal with a non-roster invite to camp, and this is a guy that, hey, if he shows he's still young and he's got some lively stuff, and he had one really good year with the White Sox, if he shows that he can make the team, great. This is, in my opinion, a solid depth signing for the Giants in their bullpen, which you always need that. They also signed Jason Foley, who, just so you know, is coming off shoulder surgery and will not be able to pitch until at least the midway point of the season. So this is not someone who you're going to slot into your bullpen right away, but this is another depth piece with a high-end potential. It is a 1-year deal, though, and so I'm a little confused. I like it, but why couldn't we give him a 2-year deal and let him bounce back from his surgery and then come back to play the next year more? I don't know, but if the Giants are in a playoff run and he comes back healthy and he pitches like he did last year, amazing. Or the year before even, amazing. Because Jason Foley, he has spent 4 seasons with the Detroit Tigers, starting in 2021. He is age 30, just turned 30 about a month ago. So he's entering his age 30 season. Did not pitch last year because of his shoulder injury. But in 2024, his last season, he pitched in 69 games through 60 innings, had a 3.15 ERA, and he was the closer for the Tigers, finished with 28 saves. So this is someone who has closing experience, who has late inning experience, which is exactly what the Giants need. I'm just bummed he's not going to be ready to go at the start of the season. But hey, if the Giants are making a playoff push and he comes back healthy and strong and can pitch like he did in 2024 or 2023, where in 70 games he pitched to a 2.61 ERA, had 7 saves that year, so it wasn't really their closer. But the last 2 full seasons that he had, even in 2022, he still had a pretty decent season in 60 games with a 3.88 ERA. If he can come back mid-season, the Giants are making a push, and he can be another arm in the late inning, in the pen in the late innings. Amazing. This is great. This is huge for the Giants' playoff hopes. This is must-have. This cannot be your only option. We cannot go into, in my opinion, we cannot go into the season with Ryan Walker. Hey, Ryan Walker's going to close until Foley is ready. No. We're not doing that. We cannot do that. This has to be another insurance piece for our bullpen. We need a 9th inning guy or an 8th inning guy. We need 1 or 2 more guys at the back end of the bullpen that we can rely on. And hey, maybe the front office views Peguero at a high level and thinking he's going to be our closer this year. Maybe they view Eric Miller at a higher level than I do and think, hey, he could close. Or maybe they've seen stuff with Ryan Walker that I'm not seeing. But I don't know. I think the Giants need to do more than this, in my opinion. But I like this move, especially if they're making a run halfway through the year and he comes back and he's healthy. And then the next move the Giants have done, this one's a little bit more interesting. They have signed starting pitcher Adrian Hauser to I believe a 2-year deal. I'm blanking on the contract. Excuse me. But anyway, I think it's a 2-year deal with an option for a 3rd year. But anyway, this is a guy, he's going to be in the rotation. So this is the Giants addressing some of the rotational needs. Right now, we for sure have Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, and Landon Roop. We have openings at the 4 and the 5 spot that could be filled by one of the younger guys, or it could be filled by bringing back Justin Verlander. But I believe they're signing 2 starting pitchers, and I've said this before, this offseason. I think they're going to sign one guy who is decent, who's going to eat up some innings, who you could put in the back of the back of the rotation. But then I also think they're going to get one higher end starting pitcher, and that could be Tetsuya Imai. I think I pronounced that right, from Japan. If they want to do that, it could be a Zach Gallen, it could be a Michael King, it could be someone a little bit higher up that free agent chart there that you can slot into the 3rd spot behind Webb and Ray and have a really solid starting pitcher there. So I think Hauser, I don't think he qualifies, in my opinion, and I hope he doesn't. If this is their higher up free agent pitcher move, I'm concerned because he's good, but he's not what we need. We need a number 3 who can be counted on, who can almost flirt with being another ace in the rotation. But anyway, if Hauser's is our 4 or our 5, I'm all in on this move. So anyway, let's look at his career. Excuse me, I'm still getting over this cold that's been around my face and chest for months. So anyway, he is entering into his age 33 season. He pitched with the Rays last year and the White Sox, was traded halfway through the season. So his full 2025 in 21 starts, pitched to a 3.31 ERA, had an 8-5 record, pitched 125 innings, 92 strikeouts, had a whip of 1.28, had a FIP of 3.81. So these are good numbers. These are good quality numbers that you would like to slot into the back of your rotation. The year before, in 2024, he only made 7 starts, pitched in 23 games, pitched to a 5.84 ERA with the Mets. Not a good year there. And then before that, he had a long stretch from 2018 all the way through 2023 as a pretty consistent piece of the Milwaukee Brewers rotation. 2023 and 21 starts, pitched to a 4.12 ERA. 2022 and 21 starts, pitched to a 4.73. In 2021 and 26 starts, pitched to a 3.22. And we're not going to go any further beyond that. But he was a pretty consistent piece of that Brewers rotation. But here's something you need to recognize, and you probably heard the pattern. He has not made over 26 starts in a single season. That means he has not had a full start to finish. I'm in the rotation. I'm pitching once every 5 days. He has not had a full season like that. So, and I know the Giants are not dumb. Obviously, Buster Posey and Zach Manassi in the front office, they're not dumb. They know what they're doing. They're smart. You need more than 5 starting pitchers to get you through the season. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be guys who underperform. And thankfully, the Giants have a lot of depth with their young arms. But signing someone like Hauser, as long as he's not slotted in to be your number 3, if he's like, hey, he'll be our 5, and let's hope we get 20 starts out of him. Let's hope we get 120, 130 innings out of him. Amazing. amazing. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. And look, if he stays healthy and he pitches well, let's get a full season out of him. That's awesome. I'd be all in on that. But we cannot count on this guy to be a consistent piece in the rotation from start to finish. I hope he is, but track record shows he's going to be a solid back-end rotation pitcher who's probably going to miss 9 to 12 starts this year. That's just the track record of his career, and so we should plan accordingly. The Giants should sign a bigger, higher-name starting pitcher, and they should maybe even sign another, maybe go get Verlander back, maybe get Scherzer if you want to do that, or maybe roll the dice on someone who's coming off an injury, or just trust the young guys. And we just need to make sure we have 7, 8, or 9 starting pitchers ready to go, because I do not want to see bullpen games anymore. Occasionally is fine. But I'm sick and tired of the long stretches where there are multiple bullpen games a week. We cannot go into August with 2 healthy starting pitchers and then 3 bullpen games. We cannot do that anymore. We cannot do it. We need a healthy rotation. We need a deep rotation. Thankfully, we have some young arms who can do that, but the Giants should not be done with this Hauser move. I like him. I'm glad they got him. I'm all in on this. I think it's a good move. Why not? It's inexpensive. Let's do it. But you can't stop here. Okay, let's look at the rumor mill, which the rumor mill does not include a lot of starting pitching right now. I think a lot of it depends on what the Giants do. If they're involved with Imai or Imai, however you pronounce his name, if they're involved and they go get him, amazing. If they're not, I think a lot of the starting pitching market is waiting on that pen to drop, or that move to be made to determine the rest of the market. But we'll see. The Giants do need someone else, in my opinion. And again, I would love a Zach Gallen. I think he'd be great. But let's look at some of the names that have popped up. The first one I want to look at is Brendan Donovan. The Giants have been included in rumors around Brendan Donovan, trade talks for him. He is with the Cardinals, in the Cardinals organization, has been a fantastic, very solid 2 to 3 WAR second baseman every single year of his career, except his rookie year, he had a 4 WAR. But this last year in 2025, in his age 28 season, he hit .287, which is a very high batting average in today's game, a .353 on base, a .422 slug, which comes out to a .775 OPS, an OPS plus of 119, that means he's 19 points above the average player. And for your second base position, this sort of production is fantastic. It is hard to find second basemen who can hit the ball well enough to be a pretty highly above average hitter. He has very good defensive tools. He's not this amazing defender, but he's solid. Doesn't have a ton of power. Hits between 10 to 15 home runs a year. Doesn't have a ton of speed. He'll steal like 3 to 5 bags a year. But he has shown the ability to play a good second base, to be a grinder, to be someone who you can trust towards the back of your lineup to deepen that lineup. And the Giants, again, don't need to address the second base position. They really don't. If they roll out on opening day and Casey Schmidt is the starting second baseman, I'm here for it. I'm excited. I like Casey Schmidt. I think he's got a lot of potential. He's got some pop. His defense is formidable enough, and I would love to see it. I'd be fine with that. Even if they roll out Tyler Fitzgerald, I'd be open to it. He had a great year 2 years ago. Maybe last year was rough because he had some injury problems. So if they don't address the second base position, I'm not going to be overly concerned. It's not a high area of need, in my opinion. But if they want to, this is a guy who I think would be fantastic for them. So anyway, there's rumors around the Giants trading for him. I don't think he would require too much. I believe he has 2 years left on his he has 2 years of arbitration left on his contract before he's a full free agent. So that would be worthwhile, but I don't think he's going to demand a lot in return. You're not going to have to give up a ton or top end prospects for this guy. So if the Giants make this move, I would be excited. I think it would deepen our lineup. And addressing the second base position, I talked about this when I was suggesting the Giants pursue Ha-Seong Kim, which they didn't do, and he's with the Braves. He just signed a deal with the Braves. But if they address the second base position with someone like Brendan Donovan, who you can slot in as your starting second baseman, all of a sudden your team becomes so much deeper. All of a sudden, your team is so much deeper. You could slot Casey Schmidt in as a super utility around the infield and use his bat off the bench, and he could fill in for guys. If Chapman gets hurt, he could play a good third base. You could even drop down to only holding 4 outfielders on your roster and keep Tyler Fitzgerald on your roster to be a super utility who could play outfield and infield and just kind of be the speed off the base paths, off the bench on the base paths. There you go. I can talk. And all of a sudden your team becomes so much deeper, which is an important thing. We saw this in the World Series. I hate talking about the Dodgers, but Miguel Rojas had one of the biggest hits, had that game tying home run in the 9th inning as the Blue Jays were 2 outs away from winning the World Series. He barely played in the playoffs. He barely played in the World Series. He was a depth piece, and he came in and had the biggest hit of the season for the Dodgers. You need guys like this who can step up when somebody gets hurt and be a major league ball player. We cannot keep bringing guys up from AAA who are not major league ready and look terrible at the plate. We can't keep relying on Brett Wisely to fill in at second base. No offense to Brett Wisely. We need guys who are good enough to hang with them at the big league level. Trading for someone like Brendan Donovan would deepen the team so much. So I am all for this trade, as long as you don't give up too much, as long as you don't overpay. Another player who is available, who the Giants have been rumored to be targeting in the free agent market, is Harrison Bader. This is one of the names that I could see them using to address their outfield need, specifically in right field. As much as we love Drew Gilbert, his numbers were not great. Okay, he is not our starting right. He cannot be our starting right fielder. Luis Matos has not proven to be good enough to be a major league ball player every single day. Maybe those guys are great off the bench, but the Giants need a starting high-level outfielder. I want Kyle Tucker. I'll say it. Why not? Come on. I've ranted about that enough. I want Kyle Tucker, but if not Kyle Tucker, there's 2 names that they've been rumored for, and the first one here is Harrison Bader. He's the more affordable option versus the other option we're going to talk about in a little bit. And he's pretty solid last year with the Phillies. He started with the Twins and then finished with the Phillies in 2025. Finished with a 3.9 WAR. Played in 146 games. Hit a 277 average, which again in this day and age is fantastic. With a 347 on base, a 449 slug, a 796 OPS, flirting with the 800 OPS, an OPS plus of 117. Hit 17 home runs with 54 ribbies. And also stole 11 bags. And he plays a good outfield. He can play center field. If Jung-Hoo Lee continues to prove to not really be equipped for center field, let's slide him over. Harrison Bader is someone who can play center field. And if not, he can play a good right field. We all know the right field at Oracle Park is high demand. It is high expectation for your outfielders to play that position well. Bader, I think, would be a good option for the Giants to sign. He shouldn't be too expensive. You could probably get him on a 2 or 3 year deal and for not that much money compared to one of the guys we're going to talk about in a little bit. And so if the Giants, let's say their offseason is, one more big starting pitcher and then maybe another late-end reliever who has potential to be a really good late-end reliever who could close. And then they go out and they trade for Brendan Donovan to slot at second base and they sign Harrison Bader. And they don't get any of the big names. They don't get Tucker. They don't get Amai. They don't get, I would feel okay about this offseason. If your offseason consisted of another bullpen piece, Zach Gallen, as well as Hauser to round out the rotation, you traded for Brendan Donovan and you signed Harrison Bader, all of a sudden that's a good team. That's not quite the dream offseason, but that's a solid offseason where the Giants have filled in holes, at the catcher position, at the second base position. They've created depth in their lineup. They've created depth in their bullpen, depth in their rotation. This is a good team. The good news about the Giants is they have star power. They have Rafi Devers. They have Willie Adames. They have Matt Chapman. They have Logan Webb, and I would include Robbie Ray in this list. They've got some guys who can carry the team a little bit. They just need to be well-rounded in the rest of the way. The rest of the roster needs to be a little bit more well-rounded. I would like them to do that well-rounding by signing some big names, someone like Kyle Tucker. He also adds depth to your team and creates a deeper roster. But someone like Harrison Bader and someone like Brendan I would be happy with that offseason. That would be a solid offseason. For the Giants to be good, for the Giants to make the playoffs, they don't have to go crazy, in my opinion. They have a good team. They went on a funky, crazy, wild dip and slide last year. That was weird. And then they went on this wild run. I think they are somewhere in the middle there. I think they are a good team, a good enough team to make the playoffs. I think you only need to win, as we saw last year, 84, 85, or 86 games to make the playoffs. No. Do we want that? No, we want them to be pursuing the division. But if they make some of these more depth moves and then some other pieces like Bader and Donovan who are solid ball players that you can put in your lineup every day and are going to be impact players but not superstars, I think that's great. But I want them to do more, but I'd be happy with that. Another name that they've been rumored to be looking at is Michael Kopech. He's a former starter turned reliever, was a high top end prospect for the White Sox, and just never really had that. He had some good seasons, but never hit that high potential that everybody thought. And then he's found himself as a reliever now, most recently with the Dodgers. Last year he only pitched in 14 games, had some injury issues, but he pitched in those 14 games to a 2.45 ERA. In 2024, with the Dodgers and the White Sox, between the two teams, had a full season. He pitched in 67 games total, 43 of them with the White Sox to a 4.74 ERA, so not that great. In 24 games with the Dodgers, pitched to a 1.13, was fantastic with the Dodgers in 2024. But he finished total in 67 games with a 3.46 ERA and had 15 saves as well. And so this is someone who's got some nasty stuff, has high potential, was a former top prospect, has history in his career as a starter and a reliever. He's one of those names that I would be pumped if the Giants went out and got. He's 30 years old. Say, hey, you got some stuff, you got some potential. Let's see what you can do in our bullpen. The Giants are the kind of team right now with the makeup of their bullpen that they should be taking chances like this on guys just like that. Let's move on for time's sake and talk about our final rumor mill free agent that I've been hearing about for the Giants, and that is Cody Bellinger. Now, if you've listened to a previous episode, you know I'm not the biggest Cody Bellinger fan, and I know it has something to do with my bias against the Dodgers. And when I see Cody Bellinger, I see him in an LA uniform. I know he hasn't been a Dodger since 2022. We're going on 4 full seasons since he's been a Dodger. And I know his time with the Dodgers ended bad. And so that makes me happy. And I know, he's not a Dodger anymore. I just never really liked the way his persona. He seems like he doesn't care. I know that's nonsense. I know that's not true. And I know he's not high on the field all the time. He looks like he's high. I know most of that is not true. If you look at this guy's numbers, he is a fantastic ball player. He would be fantastic on the Giants team. He would be an everyday right fielder who can also play center field, who can also play first base at a high level, all 3 positions, and can hit the ball very well. My only concern is he had a stretch there of some really bad seasons where he was, especially in 2021, one of the worst hitters in the league. But then he's had seasons where he's one of the best, if not the best, hitters in the league early in his career, and now more recently in his career. There's been a lot of talk about he had some shoulder issues towards the end of his time with the Dodgers, which can be an explanation of his numbers tailing off towards the end of his time with the Dodgers. He's made some adjustments to his swing and his stance, which has really turned around his career with the Cubs and now last year with the Yankees. My only concern, again, is that, and then he's left-handed, which the Giants are getting a little left-handed heavy with Devers, and if they go get Bellinger and then Jung-Hoo Lee, if all your power with Devers and Bellinger, or most of your power, is coming from the left side, which is not, I guess, with Adames and Chapman will probably, if he has a full healthy year, he could flirt with 30, and Adames, same with him, hit 30 last year. So maybe it's more balanced than I'm thinking. But anyway, does Bellinger even want to come play at Oracle Park? Does he have a bad taste in his mouth from his time with the Dodgers and getting jeered and booed and yelled at and screamed at, and he didn't play very well in particular at certain games? I remember the one game where he tried to make a throw from first to third and threw it about a mile over the third baseman's head, and the crowd just went crazy. That was a fun game for us as Giants fans. But does he even want to come? Does his left-handed swing match the ballpark at all? Or is he going to be looking for a ballpark like New York or Philadelphia or somewhere, Cincinnati, places that he will hit a lot of home runs just because of the makeup of the ballpark? I don't know. And I could go on. I could keep going on about why this wouldn't work out. But if it did work out, if the Giants made a play on Bellinger, which would have to be a 6 or 7 year deal, which the Giants have quite a lot of those. You want to make sure you're giving out those kind of deals to the right kind of players, and I don't know if Bellinger is one of those players, if he's that right kind of player. But let's look at his numbers just for fun. Last year with the Yankees, played a full season, 152 games, had 588 at-bats, finished with a 5.1 WAR. That is fantastic. Is it the ballpark, though? We don't know. He hit to a 272 batting average, which again is solid in this day and age, really solid. 334 on base, a 480 slug, an 813 OPS, and a 125 OPS plus. Hit 29 homers with 98 RBIs. Those homer numbers could be inflated with New York. I'd like to spend some time looking at his breakdown of how many homers he hits in every ballpark, how many of his home runs would be home runs at Oracle or elsewhere. The year before with the Cubs, did okay. His second year with the Cubs was not nearly as good as his first year with the Cubs. Hit 266 with a 325 on base and a 426 slug, which comes out to a 751 OPS with a 111 OPS plus. So slightly above average. Hit only 18 home runs and 78 RBIs. Had some injuries that year, only played in 130 games. Same with 2023, 130 games in 2023, but he was fantastic in 2023. A 307 batting average, a 356 on base, a 525 slug which comes out to an 881 OPS and a 139 OPS plus. Hit 26 home runs, 97 RBIs, had 20 steals that year. It was a 2020 player that year. Fantastic season, which was huge for him because he just came off a 3-year run where he was a very below average hitter, including 2021, where his OPS plus was 44. To put that in context, that is, I think, 20 points lower than Patrick Bailey last year. So in 2021, he was like the worst player in the big leagues, which is interesting because in 2019, we were going way back, so this doesn't even really apply. But in 2019, he was the best hitter in the majors and had an 8.7 WAR, won the MVP, 47 homers, and 305 average. And we could go on, but that's a long time ago. But most recently, his last 3 full seasons, 2 with the Cubs, 1 with the Yankees, have been very good. He's a great defender. So if the Giants want to go get Cody Bellinger, they're going to have to spend, and I will come around to it. And he's going to have to grow on me, and I'm sure he will once he puts on the Giants uniform. I'm sure I'll become a quick fan of Cody Bellinger, and maybe I'll like the way he acts like he doesn't care. I don't know. Maybe not. But anyway, so those are the rumors. I don't know where the Giants are going to go. Ken Rosenthal had a report basically saying, I don't know what direction the Giants are taking. And I've got this anger welling up within me about these reporters. They're just talking out of their butts, in my opinion. They really are. Of course, Ken Rosenthal doesn't know the direction of the Giants because the Giants haven't done much yet. You don't know the direction of any team until they do something. Half the teams are lying to the reporters to keep their leverage when it comes to dealing with these agents and these players. And so, Ken Rosenthal, you're talking out of your rear end, dude. You're just, I don't know what direction the Giants are. Nobody does, except the Giants. They have a plan. If they don't have a plan, they shouldn't be in that position. I guarantee you Buster Posey has a plan. And I will die on that hill until Buster Posey proves himself to not be fit for this job, which I hope never happens because I don't want his legacy to be tarnished in any way with the Giants. And so I hope he has success. But don't listen to reports from guys like Ken Rosenthal who are not tied in with the Giants consistently. And he's just speaking out of his rear end because he has to say something. That's his job. He has to say something. And so he'll say whatever he wants. Oh, the Giants don't have any direction. But then when we get to the end of the offseason, we'll probably see, oh, this was their direction. So anyway, I keep ranting about these reporters. All these guys just drive me nuts half the time. So anyway, let's conclude today's episode with our random player search, which is going to be a not so random player because Jeff Kent recently was inducted into the Hall of Fame, which is a big deal. But before we get into that, I have to say the fact that Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame is an absolute crime against humanity. Barry Bonds, yes, he took steroids, well, allegedly, but most definitely. But we have to take it. The Hall of Fame has to take in consideration the era in which these players played. Everybody was taking roids. Everybody was doing something to enhance their game in some way or another. Guys like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens need to be in the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame, in my opinion, should be more of a museum. We look at the history of the game. And if you want to say, hey, these are the steroid era players, and hey, look, he took steroids, we know that, but also he was by far the best player in the steroid era. So the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, needs to be more of a museum, something that people can look back on and highlight different eras and the best player in those eras. But anyway, Jeff Kent has made it to the Hall of Fame, so let's look at his career and reminisce a little bit. All right, Jeff Kent finished his career with a 55.4 WAR, which is fantastic. Hit 377 home runs, most home runs ever by a second baseman. Finished with a 290 career batting average, which we have to understand the era of the game he played in. A higher average was much more common, but a 290 career average is still fantastic. 356 career on base, 500 career slug, an 855 career OPS, a 123 career OPS plus. He played with a lot of teams. He started his career in Toronto for a little minute, played with the Mets for a handful of seasons, played for the Cleveland Indians at the time for one season, and then came over and had the prime of his career with the Giants from 1997 through 2002. Played 2 years with the Astros in 03 and 04, and then we don't like to talk about it, but ended up with the Dodgers from 2005 to the end of his career in 2008. He has said he wants to go into the Hall of Fame as a Giant because those were the seasons where his career took off. And I'm not surprised. That's what everybody remembers him as a Giant with that mustache and those flip glasses. Oh man, Jeff Kent was an amazing player. I remember growing up watching Kent and Bonds and Snow, and that team was just so much fun to watch, and Aurelia and so on and so forth. And Kent, man, as good as Bonds was, Jeff Kent was fantastic. Let's look at the seasons he had with the Giants. In 1997, he had a 4.1 WAR, hit only 250 though. His average was lower, but he hit 29 homers and 129 RBIs. In 1998, he hit 297, his batting average. He had a 555 slug, hit 31 homers, 128 RBIs. My goodness, from 1997 through 2002, every single year with the Giants had over 100 RBIs. That is fantastic. I know RBIs aren't considered as highly as they used to. I'm a big fan of RBIs. I think they matter because they show you this guy can hit the ball when there's runners in scoring position. Obviously, if there's runners in scoring position more often for you than other players, your numbers will be inflated. We understand that. I still value them. In 1999, had a 3.5 WAR, hit 290, 23 homers, and 101 RBIs. In 2000, had the best year of his career, according to WAR, 7.2 WAR, hit 334, unbelievable, with a 424 on base, a 596 slug, a 1.021 OPS, a 162 OPS plus, 33 homers, 125 RBIs, and he was the MVP of the league that season in 2000. In 2001, had another great year with a 5.2 WAR, hit 298, hit 22 homers, the 106 RBIs, and last but not least, in the 2002 season, as the Giants made the run to the World Series that they tragically lost, he had a 7.1 WAR, hit 313 with a 368 on base, a 565 slug, which comes out to a 933 OPS. He hit 37 homers, 108 RBIs. That was his last year with the Giants. So round of applause to Jeff Kent, an all-time great Giant. His time with the Giants, I guess I knew this, but is surprisingly smaller than I thought. Only, 6 full seasons with the Giants. But those 6 seasons were incredible. He is possibly one of the greatest middle infielders of all time. I'm glad he is in the Hall of Fame. But Barry Bonds has got to be in the Hall of Fame, and it is just, again, a crime against baseball that he is not. So we're not going to get into that today, but congratulations to Jeff Kent. That was our random, not so random, player search for today's episode. We will be back soon with another episode, and hopefully there's more moves that the Giants have made we could dive into. But for now, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you would do me a favor, follow this show if you're listening. Like and subscribe if you're watching. Go check us out on Instagram at Giants Chatter Pod. And let's continue to build this community, and go Giants.